Be warned, readers, this video may contain spoilers for the content included. Now that you have been fairly warned, let's begin today's retrospective. Welcome back to a series of unfortunate events, The Reptile Room, by Lemony Snicket. In Chapter 9, Klaus read up all he could about the Mamba du Mal. Violet investigated Stefano's room, and Sunny made sure that if anybody walked into the Reptile Room, she would bite them. It was easy for Violet to peruse through Count Olaf's room, as all the adults were arguing about who would take who in whose car. Sadly, the Count's room only proved to be disgusting rather than incriminating. Violet then went back downstairs, and overheard Mr. Poe agreeing to let Count Olaf take the children. She then rushed over to Klaus to see if he had discovered anything. Klaus read that the Mamba du Mal strangles its victims before injecting them with its venom. Uncle Monty was not strangled before being infected with the venom, so the snake itself isn't the cause of death. That meant that someone had to have taken the venom sample from Uncle Monty's cabinet and injected the venom into him. Violet and Klaus found out what they needed to accuse Stefano and reveal him as Count Olaf. At that moment, Violet let Mr. Poe in, and Klaus began to explain what happened. Mr. Poe refused to believe that Stefano was the murderer, let alone Count Olaf, because he said he didn't know anything about snakes. Klaus insisted on the truth, but Violet suddenly gestured for him to not say anything more. Instead of talking about their findings, she wanted Klaus and Sunny to create a distraction for the adults so that she could investigate Count Olaf's suitcase. In Chapter 10, Klaus and Sunny made a distraction by letting the incredibly deadly viper out. Sunny then pretended to be in danger, and Klaus yelled out for the adults to help. Mr. Poe went into a tizzy and started shouting this way and that. With all the commotion, Violet could easily get to Count Olaf's suitcase. When the snake bit Sunny, Mr. Poe panicked even more. However, Count Olaf said that the incredibly deadly viper was actually harmless. He knew this because he read up on all the snakes from Monty's papers. Dr. Lucafont tried to prevent Count Olaf from saying anything else, but the Count ignored him. In his pride, Count Olaf revealed that he knew a lot about snakes and called himself an expert on them. Sunny and Klaus then called this out, exposing Stefano's lie. This was an amazing switch on how frightened Violet was, and then she immediately goes into investigation mode. She was like, enough of this nonsense, I have to save my siblings. It was also great how Violet sort of got tired of Klaus a couple times. It shows that Klaus has a major problem with trying to say too much, and Violet gets a little fed up with him. Like he almost gave up because Count Olaf hid his tattoo and the snake venom was in fact found in Uncle Monty. But Violet knew that they knew that Count Olaf murdered Monty. They just had to find something to prove it. Also, when she tried to make him stop talking and make a distraction, and when he said he didn't know how, she was like, "You've read all those books and didn't learn a single distraction technique?" That was a great moment for Violet, and shows off her oldest sibling status and that she understands it's easier to just let the adults be buffoons while she gets stuff done. Also, it appears that Klaus has a problem with giving up and revealing too much. He just about quit several times and he always tries to have an aha moment for himself, but it never works out for him. It's cool how this sort of turned into a mini murder mystery. Searching for clues and backtracking through stories, and the actual aha moment where Count Olaf outs himself as a liar really sealed the deal. Speaking of which, how infuriating is it when Mr. Poe said that Stefano couldn't possibly have murdered Uncle Monty with snake venom, because he said that he didn't know anything about snakes. Like, Mr. Poe, have you not heard of lying? He takes the word of a stranger over the children that he is supposed to be in charge of. I feel like he just gets dumber and dumber every time we see him. And that leaves Dr. Lucafont. When Count Olaf was talking about just how much he knew about snakes, the doctor calls him boss. Now, some people like to call other people boss from time to time. Maybe that's just his thing. But from showing up almost instantly after the Count calls him, to making up this insane theory that a snake let itself out and then locked itself back up again, to this, it really seems that the doctor is in cahoots with Count Olaf. After all, how did he know the specific venom just by examining him on the spot? I'm not a snake expert, so I couldn't say, but the fact that nobody questioned him about this, especially the children, seems baffling. Every piece of the puzzle is coming together. The final piece might lie in Count Olaf's suitcase. Will Count Olaf get away with lying about his snake expertise before Violet can find it? Until next time, readers, keep on reading.